Throughout my life, I've never once attempted a Skylander Nuzlocke. Today, that changes. The rules are simple. First up, Perma-Death. If a Skylander should die, they are dead forever. Second up, no swapping in combat. That includes running away to get out of combat just to swap. That's not allowed. Third, no hats. I can't take the stat boost from them no matter how fancy they are. And fourth, I will be playing in hard mode. If there's any more details, they're going to be in the descriptions explaining the nuances. Now, with that all explained, it's time for you to meet the team. First up, we have Superconduct as Magna Charge. Then, we have Master Iroh as Stink Bomb. Next up is Blaze of Glory as Firekraken. Then we have Mewman as Riptide. Next up, Skedaddle as Scorp. She's here, Empress as Starstrike. Here's Dwagon as Cinder. And last but not least, Jupiter as Lightning Bolt. With that all said and done, let's begin. The intro was expectedly without any real issues. I just dealt with Chompies and Greebles, so even the weakest of Skylanders like Sunburn would be able to make it through without any difficulties, to the point where I didn't even take any damage during this. Early on, I primarily focused on leveling up and collecting gold for Empress. Did this primarily that way so I could have a strong early Skylander, especially for a character that I've never really used. Though I did split a little bit of experience and gold with both Master Iroh and Jupiter whenever I went through the air gate in the tutorial section. There really weren't that many problems at all in this initial area. Pretty much no enemies ever brought me low on health, though I did recognize early on in a fight with a Greeble that they do a surprising amount of damage. I'm sure I'll remember this always, and I'll never accidentally get hit whenever I shouldn't. Simply because I think that I can take it. I'm sure I won't get overconfident or cocky or anything. I genuinely don't know because I'm recording the voiceover as I go through this. I'm hoping that this isn't foreshadowing, but it probably is. The final arena fight before you unlock the village went really without any major issues. I did notice that my DPS wasn't the highest with Master Iroh, though as I was learning throughout this fight, I definitely wasn't using him perfectly. I never used his shadow ability, his stink attack into invisibility once, so I know I wasn't using him perfectly, so hopefully that'll raise the DPS against the Chompy Pods and other fairly bulky enemies once I get the hang of that. Otherwise, there really weren't issues. Everything went down without much of a fight, and then I moved on to the real beginning of the challenge. Going into Chapter 2, I did want to try out a new character, and so I placed Mewman on the portal. Now, I've never used Riptide, so this was a really fun experience. I actually really enjoy how even at low levels he plays. Though, I do have to say, I was definitely not comfortable with him, or melee characters in general, and so I got a little bit lower than I should have in this fight at about half HP, but it was never really a challenge. However, there was a later fight, whenever I was nearly level 3, where I just kept way too cocky, and ended up below 100 HP. At 97. It could have been bad. I did thankfully get through the fight without the death of Mewman, but this really should be a wake-up call for learning how the Skylanders play. As you would expect for a game for children, the puzzles really weren't much of a challenge, so I got through them, and I also got through the dash area to get some gold on Magna Charge. Then, with Dwagon, I fought some Greebles, and I'll be honest, I still need to learn how Skylanders play, apparently, because I was falling off the edge left and right with her dash attack. I fell to really low HP, 106, which already is low enough, and then I fell into the red at 39. Thankfully, I got through the fight without any deaths, so I got through Chapter 2, thankfully, somehow deathless. Though I had 2 really big scares. I definitely need to get better with these characters. Going into Chapter 3, there really weren't any major difficulties. The enemies are quite weak, thankfully, still by this point, and so I was able to use a character that needs some more levels and skedaddle. I really wasn't in any danger in any of the conflicts with him. The most dangerous area was actually the raft, where I ended up taking a lot of damage from a single mine. Really scary, but thankfully I got through without any major problems. Then going into the fight with the village, it again wasn't dangerous. I just took my time, killed everything, and then was able to move on to the Evil Eyes Bog Hog. Now there I did end up taking a lot of damage from its first attack, but after that point I really was safe. Empress is really good, as I've come to find out, and so I'm really glad that I'm getting to use her. Now then, there is the final fight where you have to destroy all of the petrified darkness crystals that are around, and so the first 3 really weren't a problem, but this last one, it was a lot. There was a lot of enemies coming in with the ugly guys, I don't remember what they're called, and then the Chompy Pod. Thankfully, the tertiary attack for Empress, I was able to just leave on the Petrified Darkness, and eventually it would destroy it. And I got through without really getting in any danger. And with that, Chapter 3 is done. Going into Chapter 4, it did start off quite easy. The sugar bats really weren't a problem, though I did find out that you can't magnetize them with Magnezone, which is something, and it's scary to know that there are probably going to be more enemies that are more dangerous that can't be magnetized and thus turned into a non-issue. But otherwise, they really weren't a problem. I got through the first half of the level really without any difficulty and activated the first half of the Stone Monkey. Problems didn't really arise until the final showdown. To activate the second half of the Stone Monkey, you have a bunch of enemies that you have to defeat, and then you can click both of the things to turn it online. The problem is, I'm bad at the game, and ended up at 32 HP for practically the majority of the fight. This was terrifying. I thought I was out of it whenever I defeated the final of the shield guys, only for more even scarier enemies to show up. But thankfully I got through. The Chompies didn't defeat me at the end either. And so I was able to activate the Stone Monkey. And then Glumshanks got punched in the face. And I got through the level, thankfully. After going through all of the chapter, I realized that I definitely was not prepared for the fight against Evil Eyes Glumshanks. And so I allowed myself, since the fight had yet to begin, to exit the map before he aggroed onto me, and allowed myself to grind up some levels. So I went back to the level where you had to rescue the Chiefess in order to level up my level 1 Skylanders to about level 3, and then I went back through Chapter 4, where I leveled up Superconduct. I understand if you don't want to allow grinding in your Nuzlocke, however, for the sake of my Nuzlocke, just like in Pokemon Nuzlockes, I'm not going to keep myself from going to an older area, an easier area, and leveling up. I'm going to avoid getting maxed level or anything like that, but in order to keep my characters at about the points that they should be, I am going to allow for grinding. With that said, I'm not going to mention it anymore in the future unless one of my characters dies while grinding. Otherwise, if you see any level jumps, that's going to likely be why. Now, with that all said and done, here's my fight against Evil-Eyed Glumshanks. Going into Chapter 6, I was introduced to the new Golem enemy type, and at least by themselves, they really aren't all that scary. They're very easy to avoid. Despite having ranged attacks, it really wasn't much of a problem, so I wanted to spend this chapter, since it seemed like it wouldn't be that difficult, leveling up Firecracken, since I hadn't gotten to use him much. And so, as I continued through level, I got to level 3, and then tragedy struck in a arena fight. I was trying to avoid damage, there was a lot going on, and I didn't see the cannon fire, and Firecracken died. And I don't know if you noticed, but he didn't even have his name. This was because I was offline. Blaze of Glory died without even having his name on screen. Something about that just doesn't sit right. I was able to clean it up with Jupiter at the end, but even he got low because of this cannon fire. Thankfully, I was able to destroy this horrific creature in the airship. But my struggles didn't end there. Scorp was my next bet since he was fairly leveled up and I wanted to get some more levels on him, and so I went into the fight to get back the lever against a Chompy Pod and the Cannoneer, and that also got me really low. Thankfully, I also got through it, but this time without any deaths. Then I wanted to start working on leveling up Master Iroh, and so I fought this final arena fight. There was another golem in it, but thankfully I was able to use it to actually kill the other enemies, which was really fun. And I got through the level, and I destroyed the final airship. But with my first death and still a good chunk of the game to go, I'm worried. Especially because Firecracken is a bad death to have. Hey, Future Emerald here. I just wanted to mention that I know the audio is really inconsistent in this video, and I do apologize. I have a new mic, it's a compressor mic, it's high quality, so future videos should sound much more consistent and better. Sorry about that, and let's get back to the video. Going into Chapter 7, it didn't start off all that difficult. I got hit by the immediate blast from Whiskers, but other than that, the first half of the Whiskers boss fight really isn't that difficult. And after dealing about half HP, they will fly away. And so, really I wasn't ever in any danger in this fight unless I really just got overconfident, which I didn't. Now, speaking of overconfident, there's this fight. It's really inconsequential normally. There's an Archean, so it's a little bit scary, but, I mean, I got hit initially, but it shouldn't have been a problem, right? Well, I was focusing on everything except for that Greeble, you know, just avoiding the attacks. And I was thinking, oh, I can go invisible, which gets rid of their aggro. It's really easy to move around, right? Well, I didn't consider that the Greeble has a really fast attack speed, and I'm dead. So Iroh died because of me. Well, anyway, here's the boss fight. Have fun. So Iroh's dead, and I can't do anything about that, but as long as I'm safe in the rest of the level and the Baron fight, I shouldn't have to deal with any more casualties. With that said, here it is. Oh boy. Okay, cut the music, no background music for this. That fight and level was a massive wake-up call, and I cannot be playing like this for any further amount of this Nuzlocke. I'm taking a break. I'll be back in a week. I need this time to get better. After a breather and some preparation, I came into Chapter 8 with the knowledge that I would probably have a death here. Thankfully, that death didn't come right away because the combat on this level is really easy. My first near-death experience was actually to some coils because I got greedy and didn't realize that Magna Charge 1 couldn't outspeed them, and 2 that I was able to jump over them. Thankfully, I got through with neither Magna Charge nor Skedaddle succumbing to my idiocy. But you can see that I wasn't being very smart here. Also, funny enough, I activated the Air Gear Golem, but its AI never turned on. I just wanted to share that. I thought it was funny. Okay, I do need to complain though. This is where I knew I would have a death, almost certainly, and I chose Jupiter as my sacrificial lamb. I am terrible at turret sections, and this one was mandatory, and there he goes. I knew I would probably have a death here, and he was selected for that role, but I was really disappointed that that's how Skylander died, because it wasn't because I was bad with the Skylander or the Skylander wasn't good for an area. No, Jupiter would have been fine for the rest of this playthrough, honestly, if I had given him the time to level up. The problem was the turrets. This doesn't represent my Skylander's abilities, and that's just disappointing. I knew it was going to happen, and it still made me mad. And I nearly lost Mew Man, because again, I'm not good at this area, especially when it's almost like a bullet hell. It's not. I should have been able to get through it if I had practiced at all, but it's just really upset me. But thankfully Mew Man survived, and with the willing sacrifice of Jupiter, I was able to get through the rest of the level really without any major troubles. After Chapter 8 is of course the Fire Viper fight. I think the best thing I can do is to just let this fight speak for itself. So with that said and done, here it is. So honestly, as you would expect, I'm able to get through the Fire Viper fight without any deaths because I didn't play it risky at all. With that said, here's to the next chapter. Okay, so I'm not really going to give much of a focus on Chapter 10. This was so boring, but There's several mandatory turret sections, including one at the very end where there's some mines, and I didn't realize how dangerous it was going into it. I thought it was another one of the easy turret sections, and I was on the call with one of my friends, and her husband was distracting me with some very mature jokes, let's say, and yeah, Skedaddle dies. I'm not happy about it. This completely was avoidable. Here I was taking a big break from the game in order to get my head back into gear, and immediately 2 levels in a row I'm taking deaths. This just sucks. But I got it together, and I'll get through the next level and the best boss fight in the game without any difficulties. I believe in myself. Chapter 11, thankfully, was not that difficult. Most of the enemies were vulnerable to either Magna Charge's pickup ability, which is just extremely overpowered. I love being able to chuck enemies off the side of the map. Or, if they weren't vulnerable to that, they were completely projectile focused, and so that meant that Empress just made them a non-issue. Like the Ice Gear Golem only has a projectile, and that projectile can be knocked back for a lot of damage. So this fight actually helped me get a lot better with Empress, because prior to this point, I wasn't playing very well with her. I knew how to, but I just wasn't putting it into action. I was just spamming her primary, but this helped me get used to the timing for her reflection ability. So got through that, and then I got through the mini game, I guess, where you need to hit the evilized whatever with snowballs. It was fine. And then finally I got to the final arena fight, which could have been a problem. Now I did have Magna Charge, which meant if things got too bad I could just run to the edge, picking up any vulnerable enemies and throwing them off the edge. I didn't think about that at the time, because it never got to that point, but if it had gotten to that point, I really wouldn't have been in danger. The first 3 were all really not a problem. The final wave, that was kind of scary with the Ice Gear Golem shooting in the background, but honestly guys, the golems are just not a threat. I think the scariest one I've encountered is the Earth Gear Golem, because it requires you to jump instead of just strafing. But other than that, the golems have not been a problem, and I hope it stays that way, knock on wood. Chapter 12 really was not a problem. There were a few dangerous moments, but nothing really that big of a deal. What was really nice about Chapter 12 was I got to really experience how good Starstrike is if you actually play her well. Crazy, right? If you know how to use a character, that character might actually do more than like 2 DPS. It was nice being able to like ping pong an orb of massive damage, and that was without me even using her tertiary attack. I also continued to use Superconduct on this level because Starstrike actually got low. I skipped it, but she got low because I ended up getting hit by a bomb that I hadn't seen. Crazy, if you pay attention you won't take damage a lot of times. But anyway, Magna Charge dealt with this nice and easy, and I thought this part was really cool. He went in for the attack and got grabbed by the back. I don't know. It was just fun. But yeah, this level, largely, it was really fun. Not really any massive threats. I got to the final arena fight, and I mean, just look at this. I'm just throwing them off the edge. There wasn't an enemy I fought normally in this arena fight until the evilized hound things, whatever they're called, until they show up. Every other enemy I just kept throwing off the edge because it was the quickest way to beat them, and I still got all the XP for it. So yeah, I don't know, I had a lot of fun this level, which was nice considering I really did not have a lot of fun last level, even ignoring Skedaddle's unfortunate demise. I just think that level was really bad, so I'm happy that level 12 was as enjoyable as it was. Now is the fight against Mesmeralda. A little bit of preface into this fight. This is by far my favorite Skylanders fight, at least in Swap Force, probably overall as well, other than maybe Archean Chaos, but even then, I still think I prefer this fight. This was really scary though, because this fight can either go really well, or the last, like, fifth of it just hits you for 1,000,000,000,000 damage and you're done for. And so I was worried because I'm using Magna Charge because he's by far my best Skylander when it comes to a boss fight. And so if he got screwed over, then that would be the end of him. So let's see how it goes. Good luck me.
You never really had a chance. I'm the one who pulls your strings.
With that, I have defeated Mesmeralda with no deaths and Magna Charge still available to me as my boss slayer. I was really scared going into that fight, so I'm grateful that it ended in my favor. Let's keep it up. Chapter 14, there was a minor technical difficulty with me forgetting to press this really cool button known as the record button until like right near the end. So you're going to get to see a few arena fights, but I mean, this chapter wasn't hard. A lot of the enemies are projectile focused, like the new Golem enemy, and Starstrike just returns the projectiles. Empress is really good against projectile-based enemies. It's really nice. But yeah, her and Superconduct dealt with the level without any real difficulty. I did actually take about a week break in between whenever I last played and this, because, you know, gotta make sure you're in the right state of mind going through these levels. Got some more practice in with Star Strike, and I think I can actually say she might be my new favorite Skylander. She is so fun to use. But yeah, so I got through the level, went through the final mandatory turret section against Chaos, and, I mean, it's a mandatory turret section, but thankfully you have the jet streams of water, and so it's actually really easy. So got through that and finished off the level without, thankfully, any deaths. Let's see how Chapter 15 treats me. Chapter 15 was largely really easy. I mean, the main difficulty from the level, difficulty in heavy quotations, comes from the espionage aspect of it, so I'm honestly just gonna skip to the end. This final arena fight. This was rough. I had Dwagon out because she had gained a lot of levels on this level, and I felt she'd be able to do pretty good in an arena fight. What I didn't realize is that this was going to take 5 minutes. I'll just let it speak for itself. As you see, it really went down the moment the golems appeared, but honestly what was my nail in the coffin was these chompy things. I tried to kill him and I got caught in the lightning because of that, and Dwagon fell. It's really unfortunate, but it happens. Then I brought out Mew Man, which was a decision that I made because he's level 6. Yeah. Mew Man makes it through this level, thankfully, because Dwagon had done all of the heavy lifting, but that wasn't smart. I still have Magna Charge that I could have used. Anyway, it was just really unfortunate to have Dwagon die right before the final 2 levels, but she did well. She almost made it through. And even though we didn't see much of her, I was proud. She'll be missed. Now it's just time to take on Chaosandra and Chaos. So, Chapter 16 is a weird chapter. It is not a traditional level, nor is it a traditional boss level. It's 2 arena fights, and then a reskin of Baron von Shellshock for the boss fight at the end. Kind of weird, but a good level. But yeah, so the arena fights, they weren't too difficult. It's cool to see all of the evilized enemies from throughout the game again, but honestly, Mew Man was really well seated to fight them. It just wasn't all that difficult. I know I did get low at one point, but there was food right next to me, so it really didn't matter. And then prior to Bubba Greaves, I got Superconduct back on the portal because he is definitely my boss slayer. And, well, here's the fight against Bubba Greaves. Let's hope it goes well. And with that, that is Chapter 16 completed. Thankfully, no deaths, so I can move on to Super Evil Chaos, with 3 Skylanders still available to me. I'll prepare a little bit against some older enemies on earlier levels, but I think I should have this. Alright, this is the fight against Super Evil Chaos. It's a bit of a long one, so I'm gonna have it boosted in speed, and I'm not gonna say anything for a minute. Wish me luck. With that, that is Chaos defeated. Got a little bit close there at the end, but I'm glad my preparation actually paid off. Superconduct did his job and was able to slay the boss. This was a really fun and really difficult challenge. I'm sure if and when I get better at the game, it's not going to be nearly as difficult, but thankfully I was able to to do it. It was a fun experience. I got to use characters I don't use a lot, and one of my favorites from all time, with Magna Charge, of course. Got a respect for Mew Man, even though, man, Riptide doesn't feel very good, but like, he did pretty good. I'll give him that. Overall, I'm happy with it, and I hope y'all enjoy this. I'm going to private all the other videos on my channel that are related to TCGs, and I'm gonna try and turn this into a variety channel. So I hope that you'll stick around with me. There's probably going to be more Skylanders content on it, and definitely other stuff. I just don't know what or when. But yeah, I hope you'll join me, and this was fun. To everyone that stuck around till the end, thank you. I hope we can see new horizons together.